Like I said, today's subject is how and when to complete a scope of appointment. Some of you may regard scope of appointments as major irritation, an unnecessary bit of paperwork, but they're not that hard, and with a little preparation and a little experience, they'll come second nature to you. Let's first discuss today's agenda. And the first subject we're going to tackle is why is the scope of appointment required, when it's required, when it's not required, how to complete one, retention periods, takeaway, and then questions if you have any. If you do wish to pose a question, please write it down in the question and answer field on the right side of the screen. Okay, why is the scope of appointment required? Why does CMS make you go extra mile when you're scheduling a sales appointment? Well, unfortunately, back about 10 years ago, clients were having problems with their agents who were intent on selling Medicare products, Medicare Advantage, PDP, MAPD. And as a way to lure the clients in, they would make the appointment for a life insurance product, but then segue to Medicare Advantage, MAPD, and the client would be unprepared for that. And anyway, CMS in its wisdom felt that was too much pressure on the client, that the prospective enrollee should have advanced knowledge of the awareness of the meeting, and that they should sign a appointment form in advance so that they are prepared for that, and check off what products they wish to discuss at the meeting. Again, the scope of appointment is required. It documents your client's consent to talk about Medicare Advantage plans, MAPD, PDP, and it also has the side benefit of preparing your beneficiary for the sales appointment. So when is it required? Well, it's required for any sales appointment that you have with a potential enrollee, and generally you're required to prepare them 48 hours, have them sign 48 hours before the appointment. Now, that's not a hard and fast rule. CMS recognizes that there are situations such as walk-in appointments where you simply can't prepare or have them sign within the 48-hour window. But the thing about that is that, and as I'll show you later on in the webinar, that if you do or don't get the 48-hour advance notice, that you do have to explain why you couldn't get it. And the scope of appointments must be submitted to the carriers, even for non-sales, no-shows, and cancellations. Okay, let's talk about when they're not required. Don't worry about, you don't have to get scope of appointments for sales events, both formal and informal, nor do you need them for educational events. They're not required for phone calls to your clients or prospects, and they're not required for call center enrollments. Let's also go into further detail about when they are required. You are required to complete one for every spouse or significant other attending the appointment. So one scope of appointment for a married couple, or as I said, couple or partners is not sufficient. You need two. Like I said before, you have the wherewithal to accommodate unexpected guests. Let's explain that on the scope of appointment. And let's talk about the third point here. You must complete, if you're talking about health products, and then suddenly you want to segue to health products not approved, not listed on the scope of appointment, the 48-hour rule can't be waived if the client made the request to talk about these products not mentioned on the scope of appointment, health products, that is. Now, if the agent made the request, you must observe the 48-hour rule. Okay, let's talk about how to complete the scope of appointment. First, where do you get them? Where do you find them? Well, you get them from every carriage producer website, and we here at Nice Lots can help you with that. They're also in the pre-enrollment package. You can use either a branded scope of employment, branded with the carrier's logo, or generic one. And if the carrier tells you that they're demanding that you use the branded scope of employment, that is enough. They don't have the authority to demand that. A generic scope of employment is acceptable in all situations. And if you get any pushback from the carriers on that, we'll be glad to assist you. Actually, I'll be glad to assist you. So either the beneficiary or their authorized representative must sign, and your client must select the health plan or plans to be discussed. And starting last year, they include ancillary health plans as well as Medicare health insurance plans as well. On the back of the forms we'll be showing to you later are explanations of each plan type. You want to share that with the client if they're not familiar with Medicare plans. And you also want to emphasize to clients that by signing the scope of employment, they're not obligated to join a plan. That's important to note. That the purpose of the scope of employment is to document that you have the permission of your client to present a sales appointment or to conduct a sales appointment with them to discuss Medicare Advantage and ancillary health plans. Okay, let's also discuss additional points related to the nuts and bolts of completing a scope of appointment. CMS permits the client to email a signed scope of appointment to the agent. There's a caveat with this point, though, that if you want to email something to your client, you first have to get permission, PTC permission to send them an email. You're required to submit the completed scope of appointment to the carrier within 2 business days of the appointment. And now the third point, for AEP sales, you can complete a scope of appointment starting on October 1st, the beginning of the AEP marketing period, for any appointment after October 14th, the beginning of the annual enrollment period on the 15th. So anything after the 14th, appointment after the 14th, you can take the scope starting October 1st. And this is a question I've gotten a few times. How long is a scope of appointment valid for? And it's valid for the length of enrollment period. So for the AEP, it's that 6 to 7 week window. For special enrollment period, of course, it depends on the special enrollment period. Generally, it's 60 days. And then for the initial enrollment period, it's valid for 7 months. Okay, let's proceed. Okay, this is printing technical problems here. Sorry about the delay. Just want to let this populate and go to the next slide. Okay, let's now discuss an actual scope of appointment and discuss what your obligations are. First, the second box is the products that your client has to check off what they want to discuss. So then that includes everything from MAPD, dental, hospital, and Medicare subs. And then again, the next field is what I told you already, that indicates the client's not obligated to join a plan by signing the scope of appointment. Next field, you're required to get the beneficiary's signature or their authorized representative. And then the fields below that are for you to fill out. And the only thing that is a little confusing or might be a bit of a curveball is your initial method of contact. Actually, let me say that the most important field is initial method of contact. So if this was somebody who returned a business reply card or called you initially, or you met them at a sales meeting, you would place that, indicate that there. So make sure you sign that, and that's pretty much the first page. Let's go to the second page. And I don't know why I'm experiencing difficulties here. Bear with me one second. this is the page that describes the plans, and if you have a well-educated or well-informed customer, you can ignore that part. But if they're new to Medicare, or even if they have little experience with it, then it's good that they know what they're going to be discussing at the meeting. And you can either read this to your client, or they can read it themselves. But it's a good resource so that they know what they're getting into when they go to the sales meeting. Let's talk about the retention period for scope of appointments. You must retain them for 10 years. And while that seems like a long time, and you may wonder why you have to retain them at all, you may find yourself needing them. You could find yourself needing them for an aging complaint. God willing, let's hope that doesn't happen, but it could happen. And also, the carrier may be doing a client spot check on you, and in doing so, will request a scope of appointment. So you may store these electronically, but make sure they're encrypted. And because you may have to, access one of these, make sure they're easily accessible in a safe, waterproof area. And like I said, you might need them for an aging complaint, or you might need them for a general compliance check response, that is. So we've come to the summary part of the webinar now, and let me just discuss the salient points of the webinar. The scope of appointment prepares you and your client for a pressure-free sales appointment. You want to strive to complete them in 48 hours in advance, or at least 48 hours in advance. But if that's not possible, CMS provides you with you don't have to do it in 48 hours as long as you document that on the scope of appointment. And the next point is an important point for both compliance and sales, that if you think that you don't need one for a meeting where you're just discussing med sub appointments, it's probably best that you change your practices, and it's probably best that you do complete a scope of appointment, because you never know if the client wishes to discuss MA, PDP, MAPD products in the meeting. That saves your time. So instead of having to fill out a scope of appointment at the meeting, you already prepared to talk about it, and you're good to go. And lastly, you want to retain. Actually, I mentioned this in the previous slide, but you retain for 10 years. You want to do that in a safe and waterproof location. And so now it comes to the question section. I know I was presented a lot of material in a short time span, but if there are any questions, I'd be glad to take those now. Okay, well, at this point I don't see any questions. I just want to put out that this webinar is part of a series I've been doing for several months now called Positive and Compliant. The whole purpose of the webinars is to emphasize what you can do as far as compliance adherence. The point is not to pester you with a lot of rules and make you feel so intimidated by these rules that you're afraid to sell the product, but the approach that I've taken is that we present compliance in a proactive initiative on your part that actually assists you in selling and helps you avoid potential bumps in the road, such as client complaints in the future. Okay, I do have a question. Okay, so the question is, as a broker, I work with many carriers. I'm not, let me just move that seal. I have no idea what carrier I'll be discussing. Do I fax the scope of appointment to every carrier, even if no sales results? Well, that's a good question. you would. I mean, if you're, you know, if you end up discussing the, well, you know what? Actually, to pivot on this question, you would fax it to the carrier that the client ultimately chooses. So if you're at a meeting where you discuss the plans from several carriers, the only and they decide to go, let's say, the United Healthcare plan, you only need to fax that scope to United Healthcare. And okay, are there any more questions? Yeah, got another question. Let me just move the field there. It says, how long can you keep a scope that is dated to use for submitted an application? For example, if the scope is dated 5/15/15, can we use it to submit? Use it to submit an application after 6/15/15. Yes, you could. I mean, as long as that initial scope that you dated 5/15 falls within the enrollment period, and it was an initial enrollment period of which is 7 months as you put out in the question. Yes, you can use it. It's still valid. Okay, that's a good question. Any additional questions? Okay, so since I don't see any questions, I'm going to wrap it up. As I was pointing out, this is part of our Positively Compliant series of webinars. I'll be doing another one next month, the third Thursday of the month, and at the top of my head, I don't know what date that is. But next month's subject will be compliance periods on the federal facilitated marketplace. Some of you know that the certifications to sell on the FFM expired on June 15th. CMS is now reconfiguring those certifications for 2016, and we believe starting at least the second week of July that you will be able to certify for 2016. For some of you who have never sold on the FFM, you probably don't know what I'm talking about, but to sell on the federally facilitated exchange, that includes Pennsylvania, at least for 16, you do need to certify through Medicare, through CMS. You need to take trainings on what you want to sell. If you want to sell this for the individual side of the FFM, you certify for that. If you want to sell for the shop, you can certify just for that. If you want to certify for both, you would certify for both. But like I said, those certifications will be out for 2016 and be available for you to take on July 16th. If you're new to the FFM, in addition to the certifications, you also have to register. That's the second part of the there are two-part registration process. But I'll be briefing you about that and other compliance matters related to selling on the FFM next month. And while this doesn't exactly have to do with compliance, some of you are also aware that the FFM, the federal marketplace, is in the news right now, and it's the subject of a Supreme Court decision in 2 weeks, the end of the month, which could jeopardize the subsidies on the federal marketplace. The Supreme Court may interpret the law, the Affordable Care Act, interpret in such a way that it only stipulated that the premiums could be provided on state-run marketplaces. So keep your ears out for that. If that does happen, it's something that I will brief you about next month. But I do appreciate your attendance today. This PowerPoint deck will be on our website. There'll also be a recording of it that you can get, so you can, if there are any points that you missed, feel free to access it there. Also, if you have any questions about scope of appointments, feel free to call me. I'll be glad to answer any scope of appointment questions you might have. And again, I appreciate your attendance, and have a great day. Thank you.